Good morning, and it'll be afternoon by the time you're watching this. We are not coming to you Facebook Live this morning, but we're pre-recording the interview, and I'm very excited to sit down with a friend of mine I met, I don't know, probably a year ago. We were just talking about how it's been forever since we've seen people in real life anyway. But I'm really excited to sit down today with Mr. Keaton Horvat with Impact Trash Solutions. But before we get started with your interview, Keaton, I wanted to just take a second today. You know, today's Friday the 13th, and I know everybody was kind of joking about nobody wants Friday the 13th, especially in a year like this year. But I got online this morning and I saw, more importantly than it being Friday the 13th, today is World Kindness Day. So I just wanted to take a second to encourage everyone to somehow celebrate World Kindness Day by doing something nice for someone and passing it on. I know in every walk of life these days, and certainly in our industry where we are renting apartments and taking care of people, living with our residents and customers, there's no shortage of opportunities to do something impactful to someone else and celebrate World Kindness Day. So I just wanted to make mention of that. And Keaton, I know you very well. We got to know each other, I think, from the Business Exchange event the last time we did it live and in person. And you've met with the Village Green team, but there might be some folks out there in the social media world who have not had the pleasure of meeting you yet. Can I ask you just to take a minute, introduce yourself, and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for having me on today. I guess I'm the lucky one that got the Friday the 13th, but
I
happy
know, right?
to so I'm Keaton Horvat. I'm with Impact Trash Solutions. I am a sales professional for them and have been with the company for just about 5 years. I always say I'm not going anywhere. Great company, great people. And what I do in kind of my day-to-day life and what our company does is we provide a doorstep valet trash service to the multifamily industry.
Mm-hmm.
There's some other services that we will, provide as well. But that's, our bread and butter. And then what I do is I'm actually, going out and getting new business. But one of the cool things with our company that we do that's a little bit different than you see in the industry is a lot of times you see like a salesperson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they sell the business and then they're gone. You know what I
Right.
mean? Maybe not gone, but they're more in the background and you get turned over to somebody else.
Right.
So one of the really cool things is I actually get to interact with and work with our operations managers and oversee those guys and have an active role in maintaining, the business after the fact to make sure that we're meeting the expectations that, we've set basically.
That's really interesting. I don't want to embarrass you, but I feel compelled to say something. First of all, being in the role that I'm in, where I am a primary member and I operate third-party management services, you've been one of the most diligent follow-up service providers of anyone that I've ever dealt with. So that's absolutely incredible. And I say kudos to you for that. And then we were joking earlier, but I really just wish I could share this live and in person, but like your responses to the questions were so thorough and so well thought out. And I couldn't help but to think, if you take this much time answering the questions in preparation for this survey, the care and attention that you are giving, the people you're working with. So that speaks volumes to me. And I wanted to just, point that out and share that. And I'm glad you answered the question the way you did about how you kind of stay involved with your customers after the sale. Is there anything else about Impact Trash that kind of sets you apart from the competition? I was sharing with you that we've talked to a few other providers, and I think it's really interesting to know everybody kind of has their own, specialty or their own aspect of the service that sets them apart.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I could probably actually tie this into your question about like, how did I get into the industry?
Yeah, yeah.
Which is just like, kind of embarrassing, right? But not really. I'm actually really proud of it. So, to directly like answer your question, one of the biggest things I think that sticks out between us and some of the other people out there is I think we take a really different approach with our personnel and how we acquire and find talent,
Mm-hmm.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't like bore you with the nitty gritty details of all that. Like if somebody's interested, we can dive into it, further. But
Right.
the way that I actually got into the industry was because I was looking for basically a part-time income on the side in addition to what I was had going on during the day, and had found this in the evenings to basically come pick up trash. You know what I mean? Which is like, oh man, a sales guy going to pick up trash, like. But that's one of our big things, is that we truly do not have any people that are like stereotypical trash laborers, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right.
So we've had attorneys work for us, we've had CPAs, we've got
Wow.
CDL truck drivers,
That's
stuff like that.
interesting.
That's pretty cool. But that's actually how I stumbled into the industry. Was I was in car sales for a while, actually,
Uh-huh.
when I was in college. Did that for a couple of years. Actually, did fairly well with it, but I didn't like. It was just the hours didn't really fit a great lifestyle for family,
Right.
and I had gotten out of it, and kind of, I think everybody has taken one of those roles where they're like, oh, this might have been a mistake.
Yeah.
I really missed sales. Like, I like the sales where I get to like interact with people and like build those relationships and like,
Hmm.
stay with them long term.
Yeah. Car sales is very transactional.
Yeah, it's like, wham bam, you're
See
done.
ya. See you in 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I like more of like, I'm not real pushy. I feel like, anyway, I'm more of like, hey, let's benefit each other, build a relationship, sort of thing. But so anyway, I got into this basically for working for the company in the evenings as a second
Hmm.
income on the side. So
Well, that's really interesting. And I love hearing that. I think in this business, especially in the, property management industry, you just have to be willing and able to do whatever it takes to, get the job done, because sometimes you don't even know what needs to be done until something's in front of you demanding attention. So I like that. And I've cleaned my fair share of apartments, and I've attempted to, do whatever needs done, and, rented apartments. That's the other interesting thing about people I find in this business, whether you're on the service side of it or, in the operating side of it. Everybody's just got this, you've got to do whatever it takes to get the job done mentality. And that just makes really strong relationships.
absolutely. I'm even our owner, Scott, he still picks up trash from time to time if it needs to be done. We
There
we
you
do
go.
whatever we have to do to get the
Somebody's got to do it, right? It's like when the manager at the restaurant has to bring out your food because everything's, it's busy and you got to get
Yeah.
it done.
Yeah, that's how it is with us.
Well, so you've been around in this industry for 5 years. I'm sure you've seen your fair share of interesting things going on. What's one of your memorable stories about being in the business?
Oh my gosh. So I think for me, this is kind of I'm not like a negative person, but I feel like the negative things always stick out just because they're like, they're either sad, and we deal with people's lives, right? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
most properties have 200 to 300 different families, in the
Hmm.
community, and it's not like work where you're there and then you leave like they live there. So, but if I had to share something positive, I think it would be probably all of like the little like appreciations that we get and things like that happen over time, where it's like just seeing that residents appreciate what we do is important to me. And so
Right.
one of the specific stories that sticks out was we had a resident at a property that was one of our really good customers, and she had a couple cats. And one of the things that is sometimes can cause problems with what we do is collecting cat litter, because it just
Oh,
like
yeah.
breaks and that sort of thing, right?
Right.
Um, well, we had built such a strong relationship with this resident, or made such an impact on her, that when that cat passed away, she wrote one of our collection guys like this super nice like thank you card, and like left him a tip and
Aw.
all this stuff, and was saying, she's like, oh, my bags will be a little bit less light, or a
Aw.
little more light now, thank you for always grabbing this, because it was probably more weight than we, or
Right.
our guidelines, right? That sort of thing. But that is one that sticks out. There's tons of other little ones, where
Hmm.
we get things like that, but that would be probably one of the more the ones that comes to mind quickly.
I love that, especially in the spirit of it being, World Kindness Day. And who would think that someone who's coming to your door every day just to, provide you the service of taking away your trash could create a relationship with your residents, but they actually and absolutely do. So I love that. I wanted to ask you something that came to mind though, as you were talking about that. Have you ever had someone accidentally throw something important away and call you like frantically needing to get their bag of trash back?
We have, unfortunately, on more than one occasion. um It's happened, and people
Yeah,
like, it's not like residential trash, where you roll the big driveway toter out and it's like a different
right.
driveway. Like, we're typically coming 5 nights a week, to your doorstep. And so it has happened. Usually we catch it, but it's one of those things where somebody didn't think about it, or they might have left something like
Right,
under the lid of our trash can for somebody to pick
right,
up, and they just hadn't got there before we got there. And
right.
it does
Interesting.
happen.
Yeah. Hey, something else that came up, and it's kind of because your backdrop looks like a little rustic there, like you're in a cabin or something. Where are you based and where is your company based?
So I'm, yeah, good question. So we're actually based out of Indianapolis. We
Okay.
are a fairly regional company. We cover a good portion of the Midwest and some stuff in
Uh-huh.
the Southeast. And then I'm actually based just outside of Louisville in Buckner.
Okay. In
So not
what
too
what
far away.
city?
Just outside of Louisville in Buckner. Um,
Buckner. Okay.
so it's kind of on the closer 71 end to
Got it.
Cincinnati. But I'm in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, once or twice a week, typically. So.
Nice. So your region kind of encompasses everything from Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio. Is that
A little bit in Indiana. We've got another sales rep that handles some stuff there, and then I do some stuff in Tennessee as well. But yeah,
got it? Okay.
primarily Kentucky, Ohio, Tennessee.
Awesome. Well,
So
that's interesting. Yeah, I meant to ask you that. I'm like, I don't think he's like based here. But we did talk a little bit before the interview, and I wanted to ask you formally, how have you benefited from your relationship with the GCNKAA over the last, you guys have been members now for the last couple of years?
yeah, I believe we've been members maybe for 3 or 4 years. I could be wrong, but for me, I think the really cool thing about getting involved with stuff like this is getting to meet people on a different basis, like outside of just the direct, like, daily work, right? So I would say that would be one of the bigger benefits. But then also, the trade shows and the reverse trade shows or business
Right.
exchanges, those are super beneficial. um, but I think really just like getting to know people and kind of help building your brand of like doing the right thing, building a strong reputation and stuff like that has been probably one of those benefits that is difficult to quantify, but is definitely there.
Nice. Um, well, one other thing that I wanted to ask you before we get into the personal questions is, again, you've been in the industry 5 years or so and with the same company, which I think is awesome and love the loyalty there. But what kind of advice or perspective would you offer folks who, I don't know, are rather, whether it's this industry or your specific industry or just in life in general, what kind of advice would you offer up from your experience?
Yeah, so I don't know, I think I try to usually seek more advice from other people that know a lot more from me. But in general, especially in the multifamily industry, I mean, I think the biggest thing would be to just like do the right thing and don't burn any bridges, because you never know, somebody might develop a property and then sell it. You never know, who's going to change hands and go to a different management company.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I try to do that, even if it might not be the right time for me to work with somebody, or whatever it might be. You never know. Like, I've had people come back to us down the road that they made a decision and then, thought they might have made the wrong decision and gave us a shot. So I would say just not burning any bridges and doing the right thing is like critical.
Well, let me assure you, having been in the business my entire life, really, it is such a small world in this industry. And that is very good advice, not only because it's, the right thing to do as a human being, but in this industry, you will not believe who you will see again at many many points and in very different circumstances and situations. So that's sage advice. And I've spent a lot of time with my team this week. We've been talking about like team norms and things like that, because someone like you, younger in their career, just said something to me like, well, I had told them they were inspiring to me with, what was going on. And they're like, how could I inspire you? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't, age, experience, all of those things really don't overshadow character, work ethic, success, hard work, etc. Like, you look at, not to get into sports here, but like, look at our new quarterback in Cincinnati. He's like all the hope and all the rage. Like, he's got everything anybody needs, and he's got what, 6, 7 professional games under his belt. So I think there's a lot to be said and a lot to be learned from people who have fresh perspective and who haven't been, beat down in the cynicism of life. So I love that. Well, is there anything else about Impact Trash that you want to discuss before we get into the personal questions?
I don't think so. I think one of the coolest things about the member spotlight is like getting to know the members and like, obviously it's a spot for the company to show themselves to, but just, I would ask that if anybody's out there considering adding doorstep trash or valet trash, just to reach out to us and let us know. And we'd love to chat more with you.
Wonderful. Well, we appreciate that. And if anybody needs to get a hold of you, Keaton, how is the best way to do so?
So the best way to do so would be either phone or email. And my email is Keaton, Keaton .Horvat @impacttrash.com. And then my phone number is 502-640-8401.
Very nice. And of course, all of the members of the GCKNA have their contact information on our website. There are directories available. And if anybody needs contact information for one of our members, and Keaton specifically, just reach out to the office and we will get you set up. But thank you for that. All right. Now, this is absolutely my favorite part, is getting to know people. And this is really why we do this spotlight. So I'd like to just ask you to start it and tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about this before, but I'm of course, a younger gentleman, right? And one of the things that a lot of people don't know about me is that me and my wife actually have 2 kids. So Ellie is our 7-year-old, and then Lincoln is our 2-year-old boy. And we started, a family pretty early on. I was actually up at Purdue, had a big scholarship academically up there. And then, first semester of college, life happens, and we both decided to move home and make things work. And, the rest is kind of history.
Well, look how happy you are. It's radiating off of you. And I would love for you to share a picture of your family too. I was saying when we did this spotlight early on, people would share pictures and we'd get to see, the family and the kids and the pets and all those things. So if you want to share those, we'll put those with your post as well. And this is a piece of the puzzle now. I was complimenting you on how well written your responses were, and you had an academic scholarship to Purdue. What were you studying? Writing? No, it had to be writing.
No way. No, it couldn't be writing at all for me. I'm actually not, I feel like I could be better on my writing, but so I was actually going to Purdue for just for business. Like a lot of people know that school is like an engineering school. And, as soon as you say Purdue, they're like, oh, were you going for engineering? And it's like, no, like they have a great business school. So then I ended up actually graduating through Arizona State, doing their online program. And I got my degree in what's called technological entrepreneurship and management. Nice. Which is basically just like a glorified business degree that's, more focused on trying to be, entrepreneurial and starting your own business.
All right. Well, listen, I think any position would benefit from having someone who has an entrepreneurial mindset. So I like that. So you have your wife and your son and your daughter, and then what about pets?
Yep. So we do have pets. So we have 2 golden doodles. Okay. They're pretty silly. So we've got one, he's a bigger one. His name's Copper, and I think he's probably 4 or 5. And then the other one, he is I don't think he's a mini. No, he is a mini, but he's not a micro. So he's like kind of a more.
There are micros?
I think so. They're like really, really small. Yeah. So Button is the other one. He's the puppy, and I think he's about a year and a half old. And you can guess who named him.
I was about to ask who named both of them. Copper's a little more.
Yeah, Copper actually does not look very copper colored, but he did name the puppy. He's more like really light now. But Button got his name because Ellie thought that he was cute as a button. So.
Oh, that's adorable. So has Ellie kind of claimed Button as her own?
Oh yeah, they're pals. They're best friends.
Nice. What do you guys like to do in your spare time, if you have any, either as a family, and then what about you, some hobbies?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think as a family, I would have to say just spending time together really is like, important for us. And, we are, people of faith and stuff like that. So church is important. Um, my wife's family is close by to us, and then my immediate family is close by, but my extended family is actually in Wisconsin. So
Okay.
don't get to see them as much as I'd like. But um, I would say the big thing would be spending time together and then trying to go like adventure. So
Hmm.
um, that could really be anything. Sometimes we just take spontaneous trips to go drive somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm trying
Just
to
like
think
get in the
of,
car, we're gonna just go find something to do.
yeah, like just pick a direction and go.
I love
We're
that.
big into, the outdoors and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So spending time outdoors is fun. Ellie loves camping. Lincoln really hasn't been much yet because he's just a little bit young for it, but
Right.
I would say pretty much spending time with them. My wife redoes furniture, which is
Oh,
pretty
wow.
cool. So she loves that. And then I would say my hobbies are a little bit unconventional.
How so?
So I'm into kind of more like sports, competitive shooting.
Hmm.
And I don't get to do as much of it as I would like just because, balancing life and all that fun stuff. But there's some events that are called like running guns where it's almost like doing, imagine like a Tough Mudder, except
Uh-huh.
like with having a shooting portion to it.
So
So
like target shooing?
yeah, so it's
Oh,
like
that's
really,
interesting.
it's physically competitive, but then there's also like this, shooting competitive part
Hmm.
to it.
How
So,
did you get into that sport?
oh man, so I actually I got kind of bored. There was like a weird progression. Okay, so like when I was younger, I actually used to work at a gun range,
Okay.
and that was during high school and all that fun stuff. And as I kind of continued to like keep that hobby, I feel like got better shooting, and so I needed
Hmm.
like different things to challenge me. And so I got into some of the typical competitive shooting, which is called like USPSA or
Hmm.
IDPA that you
Hmm.
see. And it was you had to be very talented to be good at it, right? And I'm
Uh-huh.
not one of those super talented individuals that can dedicate a ton of time to it, but there was not a physical aspect to it. And so um, I liked having the physical aspect too because I felt like it was more challenging, and then that's kind of the progression that led
Yeah, like
into
being on the run and doing it,
yeah,
not just standing there and aiming and shooting.
exactly.
It's funny because I didn't realize that that was really much of a thing, but over the last year or two, two different friends of mine have school age kids, like, high school-ish, who were doing skeet shooting. And I was like, I thought that was a thing like on, Duck Hunt when I was a kid playing Super Mario Brothers. Like I didn't realize that it is such a big to do here. And then again, to learn that like there's something like target shooting and that there is the physical side of that too. That's pretty interesting. And again, for like a lay person who wouldn't necessarily know how you get involved with that, I would see someone like, police officers or military or people like that. But to know that, you just founded that hobby and it spoke to you, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, regular. I'm just a normal citizen. You know what I mean? But I always had I actually wanted to go into the military when I was younger, so this is
Yeah,
like the way that I can still live that out and have
there
fun,
you go.
and
Nice.
use it as an excuse to stay in shape.
There you go. Well, speaking of being in shape, if you are very active, then that must mean you aren't afraid to eat well. What's one of your favorite foods or restaurants?
Oh man, so I think I'm a big like kind of just traditional American person when it comes to food. I definitely like trying other things because I like to keep a pretty open mind, but you can never go wrong with like a good steak.
Hmm.
And so I would say probably my favorite, like it's more of a chain of restaurants, but it's BHG Group.
Yeah.
And so they're more in like Louisville, Lexington. They've got some stuff in Nashville, but they do like the Drake's brand or Malone's or Harry's, if you've heard
Oh,
of
okay.
them.
Yeah. Here's
But they've got really good steaks, essentially.
nice.
So
How do you cook your steak? What if you were ordering steak, how would you order it prepared?
medium rare.
Medium or so I bought really good steak, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago and totally overcooked it. I was really embarrassed. And then this week I bought not great steak, like, like at Kroger kind of steak. and cooked it perfectly. I was like, I really got this messed up. Burnt the good stuff and cooked the not so good stuff perfectly. That's funny. Well, one of the questions that I love asking, because I'm an avid reader and I'm very into podcasts these days as well. What is one of the most memorable books that you've read? And then follow that up with, have you any podcasts that you would recommend?
Yeah. So books, I would say I wish I had more time to read, right? And I've kind of have this weird mix between enjoying things that are like nonfiction and fiction. So
Mm-hmm.
like if it's nonfiction, there's an author called Malcolm Gladwell, and he wrote a book called Outliers that I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually takes like a really interesting approach and basically evaluating like how the most successful people came to be the most successful where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like one of the people that they looked at in the book was Bill Gates. And
Okay.
essentially, to summarize it, what they found was that he had access to the best resources for technology at like a very early age and just
Mm-hmm.
like continued to keep getting attention because of that.
Right.
And they found the same thing with professional hockey players, actually, where professional hockey players were all like born in the same month almost entirely.
I feel like I've read something about that phenomenon.
Yeah, and because it's based on the sports deadlines, so like
Right.
the ones that were basically had the biggest physical advantage early on
Uh-huh.
continued to get the most attention and then like were successful because of that. And so like I'm butchering this, but I think it was said I think the birthday was either November or February. But it's kind of like if you were one of those that weren't in those months, you had to be
Uh-huh.
like exponentially better to get to that point than just somebody that fell in that November timeframe where everybody like
That's
80% of the
interesting.
hockey players were successful
Nice.
basically.
Well, I have not heard of the book, but I'm going to put it on my list. That's again one of my favorite things about this spotlight is I have a list of books and things that I need to read or listen to that I don't know if I'll be able to accomplish in my lifetime. But that's fascinating. And I don't recall in what context, but I did hear something about the hockey player phenomenon. So that's interesting. I'm gonna have to look that up today. Statistics are interesting.
Yeah.
Mentioned that it was Friday the 13th. This morning I was looking up why Friday the 13th is a thing because my 9-year-old was like, what's Friday the 13th mean and why is that a big deal? And I was like, that's a great question. I'm going to find out for you. But it was talking about statistically how accidents and hospitalizations and things like that have absolutely been notably higher on dates like Friday the 13th. Like that's super interesting.
I'll have to not go to
What
work.
about, I know. What about podcasts, Keaton?
So podcasts, so I spend a lot of time driving, just traveling, seeing people and this, that, and the other. And I go through spurts where I get really sick of podcasts and listen to like music exclusively or
Right.
vice versa. But there's a few different things. One of them, there's a gentleman called his name's Joshua Sheets.
Mm-hmm.
He has a podcast called Radical Personal Finance. Um, and it kind of this would almost be like discrediting him to say this, but it's like he takes kind of a Dave Ramsey approach with
Uh-huh.
like way more outside the box thinking. And so he just has some really interesting stuff that he thinks about that are outside of maybe like your typical societal norms of like
Right.
go to college, become a doctor,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Interesting. I like that. I'm gonna have to put that on my list as well. I do the same thing though. I go like obsessively after podcast or listening to Audible and a book or music. And then frankly, there are some weeks where I'm like, this is the only silence in my whole life is when I'm in my car. So I'm just going to not listen to anything and try to decompress. But I've been onto the podcast thing recently. So I'm gonna write that one down as well. Well, I hear you saying all the things like you're super busy and you don't have a lot of time for those extra luxuries like reading and podcasts and whatnot. But are you a TV or movie buff at all? And if so, what's one of the things you like to watch?
So it definitely it depends on what's going on. Sometimes I'm just not into TV or just kind of too wore out, like don't have the time
Right.
for it. Lately, actually, me and my wife have gone on a kick on Netflix, the series called Schitt's Creek, which is
Oh
really
yeah.
funny.
I have not watched that, but I would love to. The cast especially looks great.
Yeah, they're hilarious. So that's a good one. I like Jack Ryan. I think that's on Amazon Prime.
Uh-huh.
I think that was based off a book series, but I didn't read
Yeah.
the
Yep.
books. It's just, but it's a good series.
Nice. Yeah, I know there's been a lot of binging and catching up on even some of the older series. Like I'm watching Shameless right now. I never watched that when it was out, and everybody talked about it. And I'm like, okay. And now I'm like, oh, that's wildly inappropriate, but it's actually very good. And I'm glad that I found that during this pandemic.
Yeah.
You answered one of the questions that I like to ask people about if you could be a TV or movie character. I loved your answer to that question. You're like, don't really care. They're not my role models. And so it made me want to ask you to speak to the question of, who has been an influential role model in your life?
So, yeah, that's interesting because I think, one of the other questions too is like, who's your favorite sports team? And
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy playing sports, but it's like, I don't also, for some reason, like, I just don't enjoy watching it as much as I enjoy it, unless
I
it's
have a
like,
hard time believing you have any affiliation with the Packers and Green Bay because I hear no kind of accent whatsoever. And you're like, my family's from Wisconsin and I like the Packers, and I hear no accent of any kind. And you live near Louisville, so I would expect to hear something.
yeah, I am a Packers fan actually. I've been to a couple of games in person, but my family's not too far from there. And I enjoy if I'm like sitting there in person watching it.
Right, right.
Yeah, in terms of like, the superhero thing or role models, I definitely have them. It's just maybe not like the traditional sense of what somebody might look at, like, oh, this big football player, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I think mine is more of like strong male, or female figures. Really, there's tons of females, especially in this industry, that I look up to. But mine specifically would probably be people like my father and my grandfather. They were, my grandfather was great at insurance sales and, did the right things. And he was one of those people that, like, if you ran into him in the store, you like couldn't stop talking to him because he just talked to everybody and was friendly. Um, but that, and then, other people who are successful in their trade and do the right things outside of their work life, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It makes me think about the word integrity. And when you find someone like that in life, regardless of what they do, it's just a very powerful force.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we just have a couple more questions and then I'll let you get to your weekend. We talked a little bit about music, but one of the questions that I like also is what's one of the best concerts that you've been to?
Oh gosh. Okay, so if it's concerts or like live music, I actually enjoy a little bit more of the smaller settings. Um, and of course now you can't go to them even because of COVID,
I
right?
know, right?
But there's something about crowds that I'm not like a huge fan of. It sounds really weird, but I don't like being in a really tight area with a bunch of people.
Right. Right.
Um, so I would say really like any smaller music settings where it's live and you can go see somebody face to face.
Right.
I had a good friend that I worked with that actually lived here for a while, and then he moved down to Nashville to go chase, the country music dream.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
his name's Travis Bishop, and he was actually really fun to go watch. Not because he was like going to be the next like Luke Bryan or anything like that, but just because it's just different. I don't know, being
Yeah.
a person with somebody that is genuine, and
Right.
you get to hear them and all of it. So
Well,
that's
that's
what I
exciting.
kind of enjoy.
For me, one of the most painful parts of the pandemic has been losing just live performance in general, whether it's music or theater or any of those things. I can't wait for that element to come back. All right, a couple more questions, three more questions. You got three more in you?
I got three more in me.
All
I'm
right,
good.
so this is a fun one. But if you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
Oh gosh. So I actually can't even remember what I put down here. What did I
It's
put?
funny because you said what the gentleman I spoke with last week said, which is a dog.
A dog. Okay. So,
You
oh
said
yeah, I
something
remember.
different, then you're like, but really, I would want to.
Yeah, so I remember it would be like really cool to say something like, this dominant creature like a wolf or a bear or something like
Right.
that. But actually, it definitely would be a dog just because, they have the life. You sit around, hang out, no care in the world, no sense
A
of
well
time.
taken care of dog, right?
Yeah, well taken care of dog with some others that love me.
Right.
But yeah,
Yes, I like that answer. And it's a popular one. And too, dogs have this, trait of being loyal to their owners and, like they're helpful. Like you think of service dogs and all that. So I think that's a very appropriate answer to that question.
yeah, yeah. It's they've got the life. A well-taken
Agreed.
dog.
Right. Um, so I like to ask too, everyone I speak to, tell us a random fun fact about you that we wouldn't otherwise know, have not we had this opportunity to sit down and ask you a random fun fact.
So there's this weird trait in my family it seems to be, it's just on one side of the family. But I actually have these pinkies that are crooked.
As soon as you raised your hand, I saw it. I was like, wow, he's
Yep.
not exaggerating.
It's truly random. My daughter has it, and my mom and I think my grandmother and some other cousins have it as well. But it's just one of those things that's like in the family. And
That's
so
interesting.
I used to play jokes on some of my teachers when I was like in grade school. Like, and they would be like, "Oh, I broke my finger," and then they get all concerned, and then
I need to go see the nurse. Does your
correct.
daughter have any like feelings about it? Is it something that she's aware of?
She's aware of it. I don't think it really comes to mind at
Not a
all.
big deal.
I
Well,
think I
that's
don't. She
funny.
probably didn't notice it or wouldn't have thought of it unless I ever pointed it out to
Right.
her. But hers are way worse than mine are. Like it's kind of one of those things that goes like gets better slowly over time.
Nice. Strong genetics, huh?
I guess so.
All
That's
right. Well,
what you want to call it.
that's right. This has been fantastic, Keaton. I really appreciate you taking time to sit down with us today and get to know us. I have one last question. And we end all of the interviews like this because I think it's important to be self-aware, of course. And I like to ask people to, share a little more about themselves as a professional. But how do you think the folks who have worked with you in your career would describe you as a professional?
Yeah, so I actually went and asked this question to one of my customers because
Yeah.
I try to be, I try to stay a little humble, right? Um, that doesn't always work for me, but I definitely try to be that way. And I certainly hope that most of the people that we work with feel this way. But I think she said that I was very professional and communicative. If there's ever any issues, they're resolved quickly, and I'm always available, when needed for any urgent matters. We try to hire and train, a great team, of course, but really like that thoroughness as well is the other big thing. I was in a meeting yesterday with somebody. They told me they were like, "I think you're overthinking this. This is too thorough." But that's a good thing because I've got a really systemic approach to how I like look at things.
Mhm.
And I try to like dig into everything. I'm not afraid to fall on the sword, if we've made a mistake and just do the right thing. So
Nice. Well, I like that. Well, I will certainly echo the communicative piece of that and the thorough. So I think your customer said the right things. Well, thank you again, Keaton. It has been such a pleasure. I'm going to go live at some point today and announce that your video is going to be posted. Again, we had not a technical issue, but just a logistics issue, we'll call it today, with going live. But I really appreciate you taking time to sit and talk to me. I look forward to seeing you again when the live events come back, hopefully early next year, or at least by the trade show time next year, we'll be able to meet in person again and get to say hello to all of our friends in the GCNKAA. But I really encourage anyone who has the need for, the valet trash service to reach out to you and Impact Trash Solutions. You guys have been great partners, and we appreciate your support at the association, and wish you well.
thank you so much. Hey, can I put in a quick plug to the GCNKA did an awesome job organizing that reverse trade show.
Oh, thank you.
That was extremely difficult to pull off, and I was impressed.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that as one of the co-chairs of that event. It was definitely a little challenging to pull off, but we appreciate that. Thank you for the patience and support too. I did get good feedback, and we had our last meeting for that event just this week, and we really appreciate all the feedback. I think everyone who wanted to talk to someone got to talk to them. And if you, Keaton, even you want to be connected to anybody else that maybe you didn't get to speak with in that event, say the word and I'll personally make the connection for you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, enjoy the weekend. Hope you have some fun activities planned with the fam. And I'm sure I won't get to talk to you before the holidays. So happy holidays. And I'll see you again soon.
You as well.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Bye-bye.